Welcome back to Outperform the Storm. I'm Martin Sordew. In the last episode, we talked about why resilience isn't enough anymore, why bouncing back to baseline will get you crushed when the baseline itself is eroding, why anti-fragility is essential. Today, we're going to look at how you can consistently perform under sustained pressure for the long haul, and why you can't build anti-fragility from a depleted state when your nervous system is running in the red, when your cognitive capacity is degraded, and when you're operating on fumes and are accumulating damage. The focus of this episode is effective recovery. Not rest, not downtime, not self-care. Recovery as a strategy, as a force multiplier, and as a competitive advantage. Those who outperform under sustained pressure and chaos aren't the ones who never stop. They're the ones who know when to strike and when to sharpen the blade. And I'll show you why the hardest operators on the planet treat recovery as a weapon, and I'll give you a framework for building recovery into your own operating rhythm. Maybe you recognize this. Highly capable people with serious talent, strong work ethic, high standards, who are slowly degrading. Not dramatically, but quietly. They're still functioning, still delivering, still showing up, but the quality of their thinking is dropping. So is their emotional control. Their sleep is getting thinner, their recovery is fake and fragile, and then one day they hit a wall. They call it burnout or anxiety or stress, but I'm going to suggest a more accurate term: energy insolvency. You've been spending like you're immortal, and the bill shows up eventually. And the reason this happens is not because you're weak, it's because modern culture has taught us one mode: permanent Ganbaru. I'm going to come back to that later on. All out effort, all the time, maximum intensity as your default setting. For most of my 20s and 30s, I treated rest as a sign of weakness. I sprinted through everything with one gear, full throttle. Idiot. I looked at people who took breaks and thought they lacked commitment. I wore exhaustion like a medal. I was a person answering emails at midnight and back at my desk by 6, and I was proud of it. Until my body decided it had had enough. I became seriously ill, and not a cold, not fatigue, seriously ill, hospitalized, unable to function, close to death. My body didn't ask for permission. It didn't negotiate. It just shut down. And lying there, unable to work, unable to train, unable to do any of the things I'd been sprinting towards, I had a thought that changed everything. I wasn't ill because I was unlucky. I was ill because I was stupid. I'd spent years ignoring every signal my body sent. The shallow sleep, the constant tension, the inability to switch off. I treated those signals as badges of honor. They were warnings, and I missed every single one. I was wrong, catastrophically wrong. Now, if this was just my story, it wouldn't matter much. One person's crash doesn't prove anything. But the data is damning. 56 of business leaders hit burnout in 2024. Over half of startup founders experienced it in the past year. 82% of knowledge workers reported being burned out. Not just tired, burned out. This isn't a few people having a bad quarter. This is an epidemic. And the biology explains why. Your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight system, is designed for acute bursts. The saber-toothed tiger, the ambush, the emergency. Short, intense, followed by recovery. It's not designed to run 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. But that's exactly what we ask of it. Research from Stanford and University of Wisconsin shows that even mild continuous stress reduces cognitive flexibility, the very skill that founders and professionals rely on the most. Not severe stress, mild and continuous. When you stay in sympathetic overdrive, cortisol stays elevated. Your prefrontal cortex, a part of your brain responsible for decision-making, working memory, emotional regulation, starts going offline. You become reactive, not strategic. And here's the cruel paradox. The harder you push, the worse your output gets. You're working more hours and producing lower quality results. That's not discipline. That's biology punishing ignorance. We celebrate the grind. We reward the person who sleeps least. And then we're shocked when they collapse. The collapse was foreseeable and inevitable. In Japan, there are two words that reveal a completely different relationship with effort: Ganbaru and gaman. Ganbaru is the energy of the decisive strike. It's full force, maximum commitment, the killing stroke. You don't Ganbaru your way through the entire day. You reserve it for moments that matter. Gaman, on the other hand, is the strength of steady endurance, patience, composure, restraint. Not passive, but strategic. It's the ability to hold steady under pressure without flinching and without turning everything into a drama. Together, Ganbaru and Gaman create an energy economy. Conserve when you can, deploy when you must. Now compare that to modern grind culture. We do the opposite. We burn Ganbaru and everything, and we call it ambition. And then we suppress our exhaustion and we call it resilience. That isn't strength. That's slow motion self-sabotage. The samurai didn't swing at full power all day in training. They didn't waste maximum force on every movement. They trained for smoothness, precision, control. And then when it mattered, they could unleash the decisive strike. That's Ganbaru used correctly. And Gaman? Gaman is how you walk into the battlefield. It's the discipline to endure without unnecessary expenditure. It's conserving energy when the situation doesn't require fireworks. So here's the modern translation. Stop treating every email like a sword fight. Stop treating every meeting like life or death. Stop turning trivial pressure into maximum output. Because if everything is high stakes, it's game over. Your nervous system can't run emergency mode as a daily operating system. Make Ganbaru and Gaman your operating rhythm and include deliberate, intentional recovery and recharge. Elite athletes understand something that the average professional doesn't. The adaptation and growth doesn't happen during the stimulus, it happens after. Usain Bolt, the fastest man in history, used naps strategically, scheduled recovery, sleep architecture designed around training. Basketball superstar LeBron James reportedly spends over $1.5 million a year on recovery, hyperbaric chambers, cryotherapy, sleep optimization. Training breaks you down, recovery builds you back up. And not just back to baseline, but better. That's the whole point. In my work coaching founders and professionals how to become adaptable and anti-fragile, I look to Tier 1 Special Forces, SAS, SEALs, SBS, and Delta for the blueprint. Same logic. These are warriors who experience extreme pressure and stress that most civilians can't even imagine. And yet, these same operators are master practitioners of what most people dismiss as soft skills. Breathwork, nervous system regulation, downshifting. Why? Because when you're stuck in sympathetic overdrive, your prefrontal cortex goes offline. You become reactive, not strategic. A naval postgraduate school study on special operations forces found that mindfulness techniques directly improved their ability to downregulate under pressure. Academy of Management research identified comfort with uncertainty and chaos as a defining trait of elite operators, cultivated not through grinding harder, but through practices most would call soft. The soft practice is the tactical switch that brings the brain back online. Think about that. The hardest people on the planet do the softest practices, not because they're weak, but because they've learned, often through brutal experience, that sustained output requires sustained recovery. So I'm going to give you a simple framework that you can use immediately. Think of sustained performance as a 3-part cycle. 1. Gaman, conserve. This is your default mode. Not lazy, not half-hearted, controlled output, steady pace, minimal emotional leakage. You don't waste adrenaline on tasks that don't deserve it. You hold composure. You conserve cognitive bandwidth. 2. Ganbaru, which equals deploy. This is the strike, reserved for true high-stakes moments. The pitch, the negotiation, the key meeting or the interview. The moment when you need your full edge. Ganbaru is not your baseline, it's your surge capacity. And then 3, recharge and restore. This is the part that professionals ignore. I don't mean collapsing with Netflix or scrolling until midnight. Think NSDR, non-sleep deep rest, breath practices or vagal toning. Actual restoration. Because without restoration, your Gaman becomes suppression and your Ganbaru becomes self-harm dressed up as discipline. Now notice what this framework does. It forces you to ask a better question than how do I push harder. It forces you to ask what deserves Ganbaru? What can be handled with Gaman? Where, when and how am I restoring? Most people never ask those questions. They just try to power through. And powering through is not a strategy, it's a symptom. So don't just build your capacity to suffer. Build your capacity to recover and recharge. That's how you win the long game. That's how you stay dangerous over decades, not days. Thanks for joining me. I hope you found today's episode useful. Please share it with somebody you know who needs to hear it. I'm Martin Sorju, helping you outperform the storm.